The night of my brother's engagement party, my mother raised her glass and said, "My son deserves a perfect day." My phone buzzed. Escrow closed. You now control the gilded elm. I smiled, taking a sip of wine because that glittering wedding venue had just become mine. Stay until the end, and you'll know why a broken promise about college tuition turned into the most beautiful revenge contract of my life. My name is Ava Montrose, and I've learned that family promises are worth exactly what you can enforce in court, which is nothing. The brunch table at Cafe Hollander stretched between us like a mahogany border, its surface catching Milwaukee's weak March sunlight. I watched my mother's manicured fingers drum against her mimosa glass, the champagne bubbles rising and dying in perfect, predictable intervals. Dad carved his eggs Benedict with surgical precision, each cut deliberate, avoiding my eyes. Caleb sprawled in his chair, thumb scrolling through his phone, probably reviewing wedding hashtags with Harper. "We need to discuss the financial adjustments," Mom said, her voice pitched in that particular frequency she used for delivering bad news wrapped in corporate speak. The silver knife in my hand stilled against my plate, metal scraping ceramic. I knew what was coming. I'd known since the invoice from Oakhaven University went unanswered, since my email asking about the 529 account received only silence, since Caleb started dropping venue names like the Gilded Elm into casual conversation. "Your college fund," Dad began, then stopped to sip his coffee. The pause stretched. "We've had to reallocate those resources." Reallocate. Such a clean word for theft. "For family priorities," Mom added, as if that explained everything. As if family meant Caleb and only Caleb. I remembered sitting in our living room senior year, acceptance letter trembling in my hands. "We've been saving since you were born," Dad had said, proud. "Full ride through Oakhaven, no loans needed. That's our promise to you, sweetheart." Sweetheart. The word tasted like ash now. "The wedding industry has inflated dramatically," Mom continued, launching into her prepared speech. "The band alone is $12,000. The cold sparklers for their exit, $3,000. Climate-controlled tent rental because Harper's grandmother can't handle humidity, $8,000. The premium bar package." "How much?" I interrupted. "The bar, $6,000 for top shelf." "How much of my college fund?" Silence. Even Caleb looked up from his phone. "All of it," Dad said quietly. "Plus what we'd saved for your graduate school. $97,000. I'd checked the statements religiously through high school, watching it grow. $97,000. Now financing ice sculptures and beef Wellington stations. My phone vibrated against my thigh. I glanced down at the notification. "Escrow closed. Juniper and Stone Holdings LLC now controls the Gilded Elm property. Congratulations on your acquisition." I kept my face neutral. Years of family dinners teaching me that survival meant showing nothing. The Gilded Elm, Caleb's dream venue, where he'd already placed deposits, where Harper had cried actual tears at the exposed beam ceilings and original hardwood floors, the venue whose previous owner had been hemorrhaging money since COVID, whose commercial mortgage I'd been tracking for 6 months, whose purchase I'd just finalized through 3 shell companies and a deed-in-lieu arrangement that would make a real estate attorney weep with its beauty. "We know this is difficult," Mom said, reaching across the table. I moved my hand before she could touch it. "But Caleb is getting married. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event. So was my education. So was keeping a promise to your daughter." Harper's family has certain expectations." Caleb finally contributed, not lifting his eyes from his screen. "You understand." I understood perfectly. I understood that some children are investments and others are write-offs. I understood that promises made to daughters dissolve like champagne bubbles, while promises made to sons get carved in stone. "Of course," I said, voice steady as my hand reached for my water glass. "Family priorities." Mom's shoulders relaxed. Dad resumed destroying his eggs. Caleb went back to his phone. They thought I'd absorbed this blow like I'd absorbed all the others, silently, compliantly, conveniently. I thought about the contracts in my laptop bag. the vendor agreements I now controlled, the permits pending my signature, the small print in Caleb's venue contract about change of ownership clauses and force majeure events. "So when's the final payment due for the venue?" I asked, casual as Sunday morning. "2 weeks before the wedding," Caleb said. "Why, just curious about the timeline?" I smiled, the kind of smile I'd learned from watching Mom negotiate with contractors. "I want to make sure everything goes perfectly." And it would. Every single detail would unfold exactly as I'd planned. Because unlike family promises, contracts have teeth, and I'd just become the one holding the leash. The waiter appeared with our check. Dad reached for it with the same confidence he'd once used to promise me an education. I let him take it. Let them pay for brunch. Soon enough, they'd learn the real price of keeping promises. The FAFSA deadline had been January 15th. I remember because I'd submitted mine at 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes before the cutoff, after triple-checking every line. Expected family contribution $24,000. No problem. Dad had said, reviewing the numbers over breakfast, the $529 would cover that plus living expenses. Focus on your studies, not money. By March, the acceptance letter from Oakhaven University arrived thick with promise. Economics major, pre-law track, honors college invitation. I pinned it to my bedroom wall next to the scholarship letter's merit awards that would cover 60%. The rest would come from the sacred $529, that mystical account my parents had invoked like a blessing since middle school. The first sign came in May, a forwarded email from Dad. Small adjustment needed in the family portfolio, nothing to worry about. June brought silence when I asked about orientation fees. July delivered the killing blow through a 2-line text. "Family finances need restructuring. You'll need to explore loan options. Sorry, sweetheart." Riverside Tuition Services hired me that August, 3 days before I should have been moving into Oakhaven's honors dorm. Instead of attending freshman orientation, I learned to decode financial aid packages for other people's children. My boss, Janet, taught me the language of deferments and disbursements, of entrance counseling and exit strategies. "You're too smart for this job," she said after 6 months, watching me restructure a payment plan that saved a family $8,000 in interest. "I'm exactly smart enough for it," I replied, documenting another case of parents who'd promised the world then delivered nothing. The coffee shop shifts started at 4:30 a.m., ending just in time for my 9 a.m. start at Riverside. My hands perpetually smelled of espresso and broken dreams. 20-hour days became normal. Sleep became theoretical. Meanwhile, Caleb glided through Northwestern on full parental support. His Instagram documented brunches at Lincoln Park cafes, Cubs games in premium seats, spring breaks in Cabo. Mom commented hearts on every post. Dad liked them all. "Investment banking requires a certain image," Mom explained when I'd asked about his new BMW. "Connections matter in his field." Connections. I was connecting the dots between default rates and destroyed futures, becoming fluent in the grammar of financial abandonment. The loan documents arrived like condolences. Federal Direct $5,500 freshman year limit. Private loans through Sally Mae at 11% interest because my parents' income, the same income funding Caleb's lifestyle, disqualified me from need-based aid. I signed my name 23 times, each signature a small death. "Can't you just defer enrollment?" Mom had suggested over one of our increasingly rare dinners. "Take a gap year, save up a gap year." As if minimum wage could bridge a $40,000 canyon. As if time would magically multiply my earnings while costs stood still. I learned other languages at Riverside, the dialect of institutional betrayal, the syntax of dreams deferred, the grammar of giving up. I processed applications for kids like me promised the world, delivered a bill. I became an expert in payment plans, in calculating exactly how many years of income-based repayment would chain someone to their education. "Why didn't you finish?" clients would ask, seeing my efficiency with their paperwork. "Temporary cash flow issue," I'd say, using the same euphemism my parents had adopted, but temporary stretched into permanent. One semester became 2, then 4. The enrollment window closed. My Oakhaven admission expired like milk left on the counter. Caleb graduated debt-free. Of course. Mom threw a party that cost more than my missing semester. Dad gave a toast about investing in your children's futures. I served drinks and smiled, having learned that anger is a luxury you can't afford when you're paid hourly. "You're so good with money," Harper had gushed at their engagement party, watching me calculate tips in my head. "You should be a financial planner." I was planning, all right. Every Riverside case taught me something new. How education financing really worked, which documents mattered, where the loopholes lived, how contracts could become weapons if you knew where to aim. The promotion to operations analyst came with access to institutional data, default rates, collection statistics, the real cost of broken promises measured in compounded interest and capitalized dreams. "You've got a mind for this," Janet said, watching me build a model that predicted payment failures with 87% accuracy. "Ever think about going back to finish your degree?" "I'm getting an education," I told her. "Just not the traditional kind." The education I was receiving had no graduation date but came with a thesis. Every financial promise should be written in ink, not blood. And family blood was the least reliable currency of all. Caleb posted his save the date that week. The Gilded Elm, September 28th. Premium package. Estimated cost $150,000. Exactly $97,000 more than necessary. I saved the image and filed it in a folder labeled Motivation. Then I opened another spreadsheet, this one tracking commercial property distress in the greater Milwaukee area. The Gilded Elm sat at the top, bleeding money like a broken promise. Perfect. The plan crystallized at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, spreadsheets glowing on my laptop screen while the rest of Milwaukee slept. No dramatics, no confrontations. Just mathematics and contract law. Step 1, accumulate capital. I moved from my River West apartment to a studio in Cudahy that smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet. Saved $800 monthly. Canceled streaming services, gym membership, everything beyond survival. Rice and beans became a food group. Every dollar saved went into a high-yield account under Juniper and Stone Holdings LLC, a company that existed solely as a signature on Delaware incorporation papers. Step 2, study the ecosystem. Wedding venues operated on predictable cash flows, deposits, installments, final payments. COVID had shattered that rhythm. The Gilded Elm, like dozens of restored historical venues, had leveraged themselves on 2019 assumptions. By 2024, they were drowning in deferred maintenance and desperate refinancing. I spent weekends haunting wedding shows, collecting vendor cards, mapping relationships. Learned that Premier Catering held exclusive contracts with 6 major venues. That Milwaukee Special Events controlled 70% of high-end lighting and sound. That liquor licenses for historical buildings required specific fire suppression systems that cost $40,000 to upgrade. "You planning something?" Janet asked, finding me deep in commercial real estate law texts during lunch. "Always," I said, highlighting a passage about deed-in-lieu foreclosures. Step 3, identify the fulcrum. Every system has a point where minimal pressure creates maximum leverage. For Caleb's wedding, that point was the Gilded Elm itself, not just the building, the entire operational structure, the vendor agreements that specified this exact venue, the deposits already paid, the social media announcements Harper had posted to her 1,200 followers, the save the dates mailed to 300 guests. Change the venue this late, and dominoes would fall. Caterers would invoke cancellation clauses. The boutique hotel room blocks would dissolve. Harper's grandmother, who'd been married in the same building in 1961, would have opinions. Step 4, create the acquisition structure. Juniper and Stone Holdings LLC spawned subsidiaries like a legal hydra, Cedar Line Events Group, Lakeshore Hospitality Ventures, each one clean, documented, boring. Corporate veils layered like wedding tulle, obscuring the hand underneath. The previous owner of the Gilded Elm, Thomas Brennan, was 63 and exhausted. His wife had died in 2021. The venue was her dream. Now it was his anchor, dragging him toward bankruptcy at 12% interest. I met him for coffee in February, introduced myself as an operations consultant for Cedarline Events Group. We talked about preservation, about respecting historical spaces, about sustainable event management. Never mentioned my last name. "The bones are good," I said, reviewing his books. "But the debt structure is killing you." "Tell me something I don't know." He laughed bitterly. "I can make it go away." Step 5, execute the purchase. Not a traditional sale too visible, too many questions. Instead, I bought his note from the bank at 60 cents on the dollar, then offered him a deed in lieu. Sign the property over, walk away clean, no foreclosure on his record. I'd even cover the transfer taxes. "Why?" he asked, pen hovering over the signature line. "Because I believe in second chances," I said. "And third acts." He signed. The deal closed March 15th, the same day my parents announced they'd raided my college fund. Cosmic symmetry. Step 6, maintain operational silence. I kept Brennan on as venue coordinator for 3 months, ensuring no visible transition. Caleb and Harper visited twice for planning sessions. I watched from the manager's office. Door cracked as they selected uplighting colors and argued about cocktail versus plated appetizers. "This place is perfect," Harper gushed. "Like it was meant for us." Meant, destiny, fate, pretty words for people who'd never had their future sold for flower arrangements. Step 7, document everything, every contract, every payment, every email chain. Caleb's venue agreement contained 17 pages of terms and conditions he'd never read. Clause 12.3b. In the event of ownership change, all contracted events remain binding subject to new owner approval and continued compliance with original terms. Clause 14. 7. Failure to meet payment schedules, insurance requirements, or permit obligations may result in immediate cancellation without refund of deposits. Clause 19.2. A. Venue reserves the right to require additional security deposits for events exceeding standard liability thresholds. Beautiful language, written by lawyers who understood that weddings were emotional events, but contracts were bloodless documents. Step 8. Position the pieces. By April, I controlled not just the venue but relationships with key vendors. A word from me could delay permits. A signature withheld could void insurance. A single email could trigger cascading cancellations. But I wouldn't pull any triggers. Not yet. Not until they understood that promises were contracts, and contracts required consideration, and consideration had a price. "You've been quiet lately," Mom mentioned at Easter dinner. "Just working," I said, passing the potatoes. "Learning about investments." "That's wonderful," she beamed. "Maybe you can help plan for your future better." My future, already planned, down to the minute. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for September 27th at 7 p.m. That's when the education would begin. The Gilded Elm's bones told stories in wood grain and worn marble. Built in 1887 as a German beer baron's mansion, converted to an event space in 1995, every corner held expensive secrets. I walked through it the first time as owner on a gray March afternoon, keys heavy in my hand, footsteps echoing in the empty ballroom. Thomas Brennan had left his files in the manager's office banker's boxes stuffed with 2 decades of contracts, permits, correspondence. The real education lived in those documents, not the glossy wedding photos tacked to the corkboard, but the mechanics underneath, insurance riders, vendor agreements with exclusivity clauses, city permits that expired and required renewal at perfectly inconvenient times. "Place needs work," the inspector said during the title transfer walkthrough, running his hand along a hairline crack in the plaster ceiling. "Foundation's solid, though. Foundations matter." I'd learned that from watching mine crumble. The mortgage note I'd purchased from Wisconsin Regional Bank told its own story. Original loan $1.2 million at 8.5%. Refinanced twice. Currently $780,000 outstanding. 3 months behind. accumulating penalties like barnacles. The bank practically gift-wrapped it when I offered $468,000 cash through Cedarline Events Group. "You sure about this?" my lawyer asked, reviewing the deed in lieu paperwork. "Commercial property's risky right now." "I'm sure," I said, signing where he pointed. The venue's books revealed the deeper mathematics. Average wedding revenue, $35,000. Caleb's event was booked at the Platinum Elite level, $47,500 for venue alone, not counting vendors. The deposit check, $15,000, had already cleared. The second installment was due August 1st. Final payment, September 14th, 2 weeks before the wedding, per standard contract terms. I found Caleb's contract in the active events file, Harper's handwriting in the margins. Grandmother's table here, with an arrow pointing to the architectural drawing. Cold sparklers, yes, circled 3 times. Her enthusiasm bled through the paper like innocence. The vendor ecosystem fascinated me. Every wedding required a chain of dependencies. Venue needed catering. Catering needed kitchen facilities that passed health inspection. Kitchen needed gas lines, which required permits. Permits required insurance. Insurance required fire suppression systems. Fire suppression required city certification. Each link connected to the next, and I now held the master key. Milwaukee's wedding industry ran on handshake agreements reinforced by standard contracts nobody read. The standard force majeure clause covered acts of God, not acts of acquisition. The standard cancellation terms favored the venue, not the client. The standard insurance requirements included a detail about liquor liability that most couples ignored until someone's uncle got drunk and fell down historical stairs. I spent April mapping every connection. Premier Catering used the Gilded Elms kitchen 6 days a month. North Shore Floral stored arrangements in our climate-controlled delivery bay. The parking agreement with the Lutheran church next door existed as a gentleman's agreement. Nothing written. Every weakness became visible once you looked past the tool and twinkle lights. "We need to discuss the fire suppression update," Thomas Brennan mentioned during our transition meeting. He was staying on through June as consultant, teaching me the building's quirks. "The sprinkler system. Grandfather clause expires this year. City wants full modernization. $40,000 minimum." I smiled. "When's the deadline?" "September 30th. 2 days after Caleb's wedding. Perfect. The May invoice from my insurance company included an addendum about special event coverage. Any event serving alcohol to more than 200 guests required additional liability protection. The premium doubled for historical buildings without modern fire suppression, tripled if the system was under renovation during the event. I filed that information next to the photocopy of Caleb's guest list. 312 confirmed attendees. "You're spending a lot of time at that venue," Janet observed when I requested another afternoon off. "Due diligence," I said. "Learning the business." The business of revenge required patience. Every Thursday, I met with vendors as Ava from Cedarline Events Group, collected business cards, learned their pain points. Premier Catering complained about late payments. The florist needed more cooler space. The lighting company wanted exclusive contracts. "Your predecessor was nice enough," the band leader of Milwaukee Mood told me over coffee, "but not exactly business-minded." "I am," I assured him, "very business-minded." June brought summer wedding season. I watched other brides navigate their day, taking notes on crisis points. The moment when the caterer realized they'd forgotten the vegetarian entrees, the panic when the DJ's equipment blew a fuse, the tears when the rain started during outdoor photos. Every failure taught me something about systems under stress. Caleb and Harper visited twice more, bringing Mom for the second visit. I watched through security cameras I'd installed for insurance purposes, listening to their discussions about centerpiece heights and dessert stations. "It's absolutely perfect," Mom gushed, spinning in the ballroom. "Worth every penny of my education, every penny of my future, every penny they'd promised and stolen." The final piece fell into place in July. A letter from the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services about updated liquor license requirements. Effective September 1st. All venues needed proof of modernized fire suppression or faced immediate suspension of alcohol service permits. I called Thomas Brennan. Did you know about this requirement? Jesus, he whispered. That would have killed me. The timing. Don't worry about it, I said. I have a plan. The plan was simple. Every contract included escape clauses if you knew where to look. Every celebration required infrastructure that could be withdrawn. Every family that broke promises deserved to understand consequences. The August 1st payment from Caleb arrived on time. $16,000 annotated, wedding 9/28 second installment. I deposited it into the venue's operating account, then immediately moved it to an escrow fund labeled Pending Event Compliance Review. September 27th was 8 weeks away. Time to accelerate the timeline. The paper trail spread across my dining table like evidence in a criminal case. Every document laminated, labeled, cross-referenced. The wedding was 5 weeks away, and Caleb's final payment of $16,500 was due in 7 days, September 14th. Milwaukee Mood needs the final song list by the 20th. I told my assistant, Sarah, who handled daily venue operations without knowing who actually owned the building, and they want their 60% deposit cleared before they'll confirm. Already sent the reminder to the Montrose wedding, she said, scrolling through her tablet. Though they haven't responded about the insurance rider yet. The insurance rider, a beautiful piece of bureaucracy requiring events with over 300 guests to carry an additional $2 million in liability coverage, cost $3,200, due with the final payment. Caleb hadn't read that email yet, I could see from the read receipts. My phone rang. Premier Catering. We need to discuss the Montrose menu. David, the owner, said, the allergen requirements just came in. 3 severe nut allergies, 2 shellfish, 1 gluten-free, and someone who's apparently allergic to nightshades. Do you know what nightshades include? Tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, basically everything. Send them the allergen addendum form 7B, I said. They need to sign off on kitchen protocols or provide their own insurance waiver. Since when do we require that? Since our insurance company updated their policies. August 1st. I hadn't lied. I'd simply changed insurance companies to one with stricter requirements. The fire suppression issue loomed larger. The city inspector was scheduled for September 25th, 3 days before the wedding. If we failed, and we would, given that I hadn't scheduled the repairs, the liquor license would be suspended immediately. No grandfather clause, no extensions, no alcohol at Caleb's reception. Can't we just expedite the sprinkler upgrade? Sarah asked during our weekly meeting. The contractors are booked through October, I said, which was true because I'd booked them myself for other properties. We'll have to work with what we've got. I pulled up the master timeline on my laptop, September 14th, final payment due $16,500 plus to $3,200 insurance rider. September 20th, final catering count due penalties for changes after this date. September 20th, band's final payment due $7,200 September 22nd. Flower delivery confirmation required. September 25th, fire inspection scheduled to fail. September 26th, liquor license renewal deadline. September 27th, rehearsal dinner. September 28th, wedding. Each date represented a pressure point. Each requirement created an opportunity for legal, contractual failure. Harper called the venue directly that afternoon. Sarah transferred her to me. Hi, this is Ava from Cedarline Events Group. How can I help you? Oh, hi. I'm Harper Quinn. Getting married there on the 28th. I wanted to confirm our rehearsal dinner space. Let me check. I pulled up their file, though I'd memorized every detail. Yes, the Oak Room is reserved for your rehearsal dinner. 58 guests. Actually, now it's 63. Is that okay? That triggers our large party addendum. There's an additional fee of $1,200 for groups over 60 in that space. Fire code requirements. Oh, her voice deflated slightly. Caleb handles the payments. Should I have him call? Please. We'll also need the updated insurance documentation. Your current certificate only covers 200 guests. But your latest count shows 312, 318 now. Some cousins just confirmed. I made a note. More ammunition. The vendor communications intensified as September approached. Each one copied me on their correspondence with Caleb, per my requirement for coordination purposes. I watched him ignore emails about vegetarian entree selections, linen choices, and timeline confirmations. Harper handled what she could, but the financial decisions paralyzed her. My future father-in-law manages all that, she told the florist, who'd called about a $400 upcharge for imported roses. Robert Montrose. Dad. Managing money that should have bought my education. I drafted an email from the venue's legal account. Dear Mr. Montrose, this letter serves as notice regarding the upcoming Montrose-Quinn wedding scheduled for September 28th. The following items require immediate attention. Final payment of $16,500 due. September 14th, additional insurance rider fee of $3,200 due. September 14th, large party addendum for rehearsal dinner, $1,200 due immediately. Pending fire inspection may affect liquor service September 25th. Allergen protocol forms requiring signature updated vendor payments per contractual timeline. Failure to address these items may result in enforcement of contract clause 14.7 immediate cancellation without refund. Please confirm receipt and intended resolution timeline. Regards, Legal Department Cedarline Events Group. I scheduled it to send at 4:59 p.m. on Friday, September 13th, just before the weekend, just before the final payment deadline, just late enough that banks would be closed. The phone rang. Thomas Brennan. Ava, I heard from a friend at the city that the Gilded Elm might lose its liquor license. Temporarily, I said. Fire suppression update. You know how the city is. Christ, there's a wedding that weekend. I'm aware. We're exploring options. Like what? Creative solutions, I said. Sometimes people need motivation to understand what really matters. He was quiet for a moment. You remind me of my wife. She always said that contracts were just the beginning of negotiation. Smart woman. She was. Good luck. Ava. I didn't need luck. I had leverage, preparation, and 8 years of broken promises driving every decision. The rehearsal dinner was 2 weeks away. Time to prepare my evidence presentation. Time to draft the Montrose Education Restitution Agreement. Time to calculate exactly what my education was worth, with interest, adjusted for inflation and lost opportunity. The number came to $127,000. A bargain, really. Considering what they'd cost me. The Oak Room's glass walls captured Milwaukee's evening light, turning the river below into molten copper. 58 place settings gleamed on cream tablecloths. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to start at 7 p.m. It was now 6:45, and I stood at the podium arranging my documents like a prosecutor preparing for closing arguments. They entered in clusters. Harper's family, first old Minnesota money, pearl necklaces, and careful smiles. Then Caleb's groomsmen, already 3 drinks deep from the hotel bar. Mom and Dad arrived at 6:55. Her in St. John. Him in the navy suit he wore to every occasion that required photographs. The venue coordinator will join us briefly, Sarah announced, not knowing she was introducing the owner. She has some technical details to review. I waited until the salad course, until the wine had made its first round, until Mom was mid-story about Caleb's childhood accomplishments. Good evening, I said, standing. The conversations gradually died. I'm Ava Montrose, and I need to discuss your wedding tomorrow. The room froze. Mom's fork hovered between plate and mouth. Ava. Dad's voice cracked slightly. What are you doing here? My job. I opened the folder. As owner of the Gilded Elm. Caleb laughed a short, nervous bark. That's not funny. No, I agreed, sliding the deed across the table. It's not... Harper grabbed the document, her engagement ring catching the light. Cedarline Events Group. I don't understand. It's simple, I said. 3 months ago, I purchased this venue through my holding company. Every deposit you've made, every vendor you've coordinated with, every detail you've planned, all of it runs through me." "This is insane," Caleb said, standing. "You can't. Sit down." My voice carried the weight of every 16-hour shift, every loan document, every broken promise. He sat. I pulled out the next document. Let's review the facts. Fact 1. 8 years ago, our parents promised me $97,000 for my education. That money, plus accrued interest in a 529 educational savings account, was legally theirs to control but morally committed to my future. "Ava, sweetheart," Mom started. "Fact 2, I continued. That money was withdrawn and redirected to fund this wedding. Not illegal, the account owners can do what they want. But let's call it what it was: theft of opportunity." "We explained," Dad said. Fact 3. I held up Caleb's venue contract. "Your final payment is past due. The insurance rider remains unpaid. The fire inspection failed yesterday. Did you get that notification? Your liquor license is suspended as of 9 a.m. tomorrow morning." Harper's mother gasped. "No alcohol at the reception." "Currently, no reception at all," I said. "Clause 14.7 of your contract allows immediate cancellation for non-payment and compliance failures." The room erupted. Accusations, denials, threats of lawsuits. I waited, hands flat on the podium, until they exhausted themselves. However," I said into the silence, "I'm prepared to offer a solution." I placed the Montrose Education Restitution Agreement on the table, 5 pages, professionally bound, with tabs marking signature lines. The terms are non-negotiable. Robert and Diane Montrose will wire transfer $127,000 to the Ava Montrose Educational Trust within 2 hours. This represents the original $97,000, plus interest calculated at the rate the 529 would have earned, plus penalties equivalent to what the IRS would charge for non-qualified distributions. "That's extortion," Dad shouted. "That's mathematics," I corrected. "Additionally, you'll fund an annual scholarship at Oak Haven University for first-generation college students. $5,000 per year, 4 years minimum. Call it the Montrose Family Integrity Scholarship." Mom's face had gone pale. "We don't have that kind of liquid money." "You have investment accounts, a home equity line. The same resources you would have tapped if Caleb had needed them." I turned to my brother. "Which brings us to the third requirement. Tomorrow, during your reception toast, you'll acknowledge publicly that your wedding was funded by money promised for my education. You'll apologize, not elaborately, just honestly." "Absolutely not," Caleb said. "Then your 318 guests will arrive tomorrow to find the doors locked." I pulled out my phone, showing the email drafted to all vendors. One Click and Premier Catering, Milwaukee Mood, North Shore Floral, everyone receives immediate stop work orders. Harper stood slowly, her voice steady. "Is this about revenge or justice?" "Both," I admitted. "But mostly, it's about contracts. You made one with this venue. Our parents made one with me verbal, but witnessed. Contracts require consideration from both parties. Tomorrow, we balance the books." "You planned this," Mom said, tears threatening her mascara. "All of it." "For 8 months, I confirmed. "The same amount of time I spent sleeping in my car between shifts because I couldn't afford campus housing and a security deposit on an apartment. Did you know the Walmart on Capitol Drive lets you park overnight if you move every few hours?" The silence stretched like pulled taffy. Harper's father, who'd been quiet throughout, finally spoke. "Show me the scholarship terms." I handed him the addendum. He read it, then looked at his daughter. "This is more than fair." "Harold," Harper's mother protested. "A promise was broken," he said simply. "This young woman is offering a way to honor it. Late, but with interest." Harper looked at Caleb, then at me. "If they sign, everything proceeds normally tomorrow. Every vendor, every flower, every note of music, I've already pre-authorized it all, contingent on tonight's resolution." She turned to Caleb. "Then we sign?" The room exploded again. but Harper's voice cut through. I'm not starting our marriage on someone else's stolen future. We sign, or we elope tonight. Choose. It took 90 minutes. Dad had to call his broker for an emergency liquidation. Mom wept through the wire transfer confirmation. Caleb signed the speech acknowledgement with a hand that shook with rage. At 8:45 p.m., the bank confirmation arrived. $127,000 transferred to the irrevocable educational trust I'd established. The vendors have all been notified to proceed, I announced. Your wedding tomorrow will be perfect. I gathered my documents and turned to leave. Mom's voice stopped me at the door. Was it worth it destroying your family? I looked back at them, these people who'd raised me, betrayed me, taught me that love came with terms and conditions. I didn't destroy anything, I said. I just rewrote the contract. The door closed behind me with a soft click, final as a signature. The oak room erupted the moment I left. Through the door's glass panel, I watched the chaos unfold like a silent film. Dad's face turned purple. Mom collapsed into her chair. Caleb threw his napkin on the table and stormed toward the windows. Harper stood perfectly still, a calm island in the hurricane. I waited in the venue manager's office, monitoring the situation through Sarah's updates. She didn't know she was texting the owner. The father is demanding to speak to legal, she wrote at 9:05 p.m. Legal is available by phone, I responded, then called from the venue's business line. This is coercion, Dad said without preamble when he answered. We'll sue. On what grounds? I own the venue. You signed a contract with specific terms. You've failed to meet those terms. I'm offering a resolution that allows the wedding to proceed. Any court would see this as a generous accommodation. You're our daughter. I'm a creditor, I corrected. You took something that belonged to me, not legally, but morally. Now I'm collecting with interest. The line went dead. At 9:20 p.m., Harper knocked on the office door. Her makeup remained perfect despite the tears I'd seen earlier. May I come in? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat, smoothing her cocktail dress. You could have done this differently, she said. Confronted them privately, worked out a payment plan. I tried that for 8 years, every holiday, every family dinner. When can we talk about the college fund? The answer was always later or things are tight while they renovated the kitchen and leased Dad a new Audi. She nodded slowly. Caleb never told me the money came from your education fund. Would it have mattered? She considered this. Yes, I would have insisted on a smaller wedding. My grandmother left me money we could have used that. But Caleb wanted to impress your family. He wanted to impress everyone. She pulled out her phone, showing me their wedding website. $600 for custom napkins, $800 for chair covers, $2,000 for a photo booth nobody will use. I wanted a small ceremony. He wanted a production. And my parents wanted to give him one. Using your future. She looked at me directly. I need to know, will you honor the agreement if they sign? This isn't another manipulation. Every word is legally binding. They sign. They pay. Caleb apologizes tomorrow, and your wedding proceeds perfectly. I've already sent the green light to all vendors, pending final confirmation. Her phone buzzed. Caleb, she said, reading. He wants me to convince you to reduce the amount. The amount is non-negotiable. I know. She stood. I'll handle him. At 9:45, ma'am. They reconvened in the oak room, through Sarah's updates and security cameras. I watched Harper work. She spoke quietly to Caleb, her hand on his arm. Then to my parents, her voice firm but respectful. Harold, her father, had his phone out, apparently researching something. The father of the bride is reading the contract out loud, Sarah texted. He says it's airtight. At 10:15 p.m., Mom appeared at the office door. Her makeup was ruined, her St. John blazer wrinkled. You've made your point, she said. This isn't about points. It's about promises. We're your parents. You were supposed to be... I pulled up the scholarship documents on my computer. The Montrose Family Integrity Scholarship. Fitting, don't you think? She flinched. Your father is liquidating his Boeing stock. The tax implications will be less than the opportunity cost of my delayed education. I ran the numbers. You've become cold. I've become precise. There's a difference. She stared at me for a long moment. The wire transfer will be complete within the hour. The scholarship will be funded Monday. Caleb will say whatever you've scripted for him tomorrow. I haven't scripted anything. I just want the truth. The truth? She laughed bitterly. The truth is, we thought you were stronger than him, more capable of handling disappointment. I did. And look where it led me, owning the venue for your favorite child's wedding. At 10:58 p.m., the confirmation came through. First Interstate Bank verified the wire transfer. $127,000, cleared and irrevocable. The scholarship funding agreement, signed and notarized by Harold's friend who happened to be at the hotel bar. I walked back to the Oak Room. The dinner guests had thinned, some of Harper's relatives had left, uncomfortable with the family drama. Caleb sat slouched in his chair, tie loosened. Dad stared at his phone, probably watching his portfolio balance adjust in real time. The transfer is confirmed, I announced. All vendor holds have been released. Your wedding tomorrow will proceed as planned. Harper stood. Thank you. Don't thank me. This is a business transaction. Caleb looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. You're really going to make me humiliate myself tomorrow. I'm asking you to tell the truth. If that humiliates you, perhaps you should examine why. You've ruined everything. No, Harper said quietly. We ruined it when we accepted stolen money. Ava just presented the bill. She walked over to me, extending her hand. I look forward to being your sister-in-law. I shook her hand, firm and professional. The venue will be ready by 10 a.m. for your photographer. The bridal suite is prepared. Every detail will be perfect, including the apology. That's up to Caleb. Everyone turned to look at him. He met my eyes, and for a moment I saw the brother who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd split his Halloween candy with me, who'd existed before everything became about who deserved what. I'll do it, he said quietly. I'll apologize. Thank you. I gathered my papers and walked to the door. This time, no one called me back. Morning light streamed through the gilded elm's stained glass windows, painting rainbow fragments across the polished floor. September 28th had arrived cloudless and perfect, the kind of wedding weather people called blessed. I stood on the technical balcony, a hidden perch above the main ballroom where the lighting controls lived, watching my venue transform. By 10 a.m., the photographers had arrived, their equipment bags sprawling across the bridal suite. Harper emerged at noon in her Vera Wang gown, the train cascading behind her like spilled cream. Through the security monitors, I watched Mom pin a blue cameo to Harper's bouquet, something borrowed, the same cameo she'd promised would be mine at my wedding, back when my future still belonged to me. Premier Catering's team invaded the kitchen at 2 p.m. Their choreographed chaos filling the space with the smell of brown butter and fresh herbs. The allergen-free stations were clearly marked. Every permit was posted. Every requirement met. I'd kept my word, the wedding would be perfect. At 4:30 p.m., guests began arriving. I recognized faces from holiday cards and Facebook posts, aunts who'd sent me $20 bills for birthdays, cousins who'd asked why I wasn't in college, family friends who'd praised my parents for raising such independent children. The ceremony started at 5 p.m. sharp. I watched from my hidden perch as Caleb stood at the altar, hands clasped, jaw tight. Harper floated down the aisle to Pachelbel's canon, played by the string quartet they'd paid $900 for. Mom cried. Dad stood stoic. The vows were exchanged without incident. You may kiss the bride, the officiant announced, and the room erupted in applause that echoed off the venue's vaulted ceiling. The cocktail hour flowed seamlessly into dinner service. Milwaukee Mood played jazz standards while guests found their seats. The ballroom glowed under the Edison bulbs I'd had installed last month, warm light reflecting off the crystal and silver. Every detail Harper had dreamed of. Now real. At 8:45 p.m., the best man clinked his fork against his champagne flute. Speeches began. Stories about Caleb's college years, the years I'd been serving coffee, jokes about Harper's perfectionism, Mom's toast about watching her baby boy become a man. Then Caleb stood. The room quieted. He held the microphone with both hands, knuckles white. "Before I thank everyone for being here," he began, his voice steady but quiet, "I need to acknowledge someone important. My sister, Ava." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I stepped back from the balcony rail, deeper into shadow. 8 years ago, our parents made a promise to Ava about her education. That promise was broken to fund this wedding. I benefited from something that wasn't mine to take. I knew it was wrong, and I stayed silent because it made my life easier. The room had gone cemetery quiet. Harper reached up and took his hand. "Ava," he continued, looking around the room though he couldn't see me. "I'm sorry. You deserved better from all of us. You deserved the future you were promised. I hope someday you can forgive me for taking it." He sat down. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats before Harper's father started clapping. Others joined slowly, uncertainly, the applause more acknowledgement than celebration. I pulled out my phone and opened the Oak Haven University portal. The readmission confirmation waited in my inbox, time-stamped that morning. Classes started in January. Economics major, pre-law track, just like I'd planned a lifetime ago. The trust fund would cover everything: tuition, housing, books, the laptop I'd never been able to afford. Below, the reception continued. The cake was cut, the bouquet tossed. The party shifted into full celebration mode. And why not? The debt had been paid, the contract fulfilled. Everyone could move forward with clean ledgers. At 10 p.m., I descended to the main floor. The band was playing September by Earth, Wind and Fire. Dancers packed the floor. Mom sat at the parents' table, watching Caleb and Harper sway together. She saw me approach and stiffened. "Everything went perfectly," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "As contracted? Are you happy now? You got what you wanted." "I got what I was owed. There's a difference." Dad appeared beside her, his tie loosened, bourbon in hand. "The scholarship documents will be filed Monday." "I know. I've already spoken with Oak Haven's financial aid office." We stood there, the 3 of us, watching Caleb spin Harper through the crowd, a family in form but not in feeling, held together now only by legal documents and wire transfers. "I suppose you'll be leaving for school," Mom said. "January 7th. Will you visit?" "We'll see." Harper broke away from the dancing and approached us. Her train bustled, feet bare, smile genuine. "Ava, thank you. For everything. For the truth." I nodded. "Take care of him. He's not evil, just weak." "I know." She squeezed my hand. "You'll make an excellent lawyer." "I'm counting on it." I walked toward the exit, passing through the kitchen one last time. Everything was running smoothly, dishes washed, surfaces cleaned. Tomorrow's brunch prep already started. My venue, my rules, my redemption. The technical balcony door clicked shut behind me. Through the window, I could see the reception continuing below my family, their friends, celebrating a union built on someone else's sacrifice. But the building was mine. The power was mine. The future, finally, was mine. I signed the spring semester enrollment confirmation on my phone, the screen's glow reflecting off the glass. Somewhere below, the band launched into "Don't Stop Believin'," and the crowd roared approval. I didn't stay to watch. Some endings don't need witnesses. The exit door opened onto the September night, cool and full of possibility. My car waited in the owner's spot, a privilege I'd earned, not inherited. As I drove away, the gilded elm shrunk in my rearview mirror, its windows blazing with light and lives I no longer needed to save or service. The tuition payment would process Monday. Classes started in 16 weeks. My education delayed. not destroyed, was finally beginning. The rest was just paperwork. Thank you so much for listening to this story of betrayal, justice, and ultimately reclaiming what was stolen. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Ava's position? Let me know in the comments.